What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Miguel. Welcome back to Miguel EDC, where we talk everything EDC. Today we're going to be reviewing the Sencut Sachse, and this one is a very sexy knife. Bruh. Alright, lame jokes aside, I am super excited to share with you guys everything about this knife. This is a very fidgety EDC, to say the least. It has 4 different deployment options. You got the button, of course. It is a button lock after all. You got the flipper, yeah, right there, right? Nice flipper action. You got the thumb deployment, right? So that's always nice to have. Last but not least, my favorite, the reverse flick. Boom. Just like that. Take a look at that. Bam. Let's get started here, getting a quick measurement on this guy. Let's see what we got here. Total overall length coming in at around, I want to say, yeah, it's going to be just under 8 inches, right? It's going to be like 7 7/8 of an inch total length. The blade is going to be around, I want to say, 3.5. The actual cutting edge being around 3.25. The handle is going to be around 4.25. Well, let's do a quick comparison here to some of the knives that we always check in the channel here next to the Paramilitary 2 right there. It's going to be very comparable, almost the same size, but the PM2 being a little bit bigger. The Para 3 right here is going to be a little bit smaller compared to the Sachse. Let's throw in one more Spyderco. Here we go. The Smock, Spyderco Smock right there. I want to say almost as long as the Spyderco Smock. The Smock has a little bit of a longer handle. Right here next to the Demko Brothers, 80-20.5, that is the shark's foot. This one is the clip point blade right there. That gives you an idea. I want to say very comparable in size, right, to the clip point variant right here. Of course, the shark's foot blade is always going to be a little bit shorter in overall length. Of course, you knew it was going to be here, the Sencut Crawley, right, the brother from Sencut. The Crawley, also a very fidgety EDC. The review on this guy should be live on the channel already, so check it out if you haven't already. And of course, the CJRB Pyrite, another very fidgety EDC review for that one, also live on the channel. If you want to check it out after this video, you certainly can. Last but not least, here's the Wrap Model 1. And here's the Wrap Model 2. Definitely going to be closer to, I don't know, it's definitely in the middle. I can't even say if it's closer to one versus the other. It's going to be somewhere in the middle between the Wrap Model 1 and the Wrap Model 2. You guys be the judge of that right there. So what do we got going on here for this guy? We have a satin finish blade right there. This is a drop point blade right there. This one is rocking a 9CR18 MOV steel. A very common budget steel for this price range. By the way, this guy comes in around $45 to $50. Right, same range as the Sencut Crawley. These two, not only are they siblings from the same manufacturer for the same brand, but as far as the fidgetability, they both go a long way, and they're so satisfying to deploy. They're so satisfying to EDC. There was even a time where I had this in my pocket and I had to force myself to switch over to a different knife just because of how solid, how comfortable, how satisfied I was daily carrying this knife for almost weeks at a time, right? I just kind of want to put that into perspective. Let's now compare here as far as length and height on the pocket here. Back with the Model 2, back with the Model 1. It compares a lot to the Model 1 because of how thick this blade is, right? Definitely a much thicker blade right there, much more comparable to the Wrap Model 1. Back with the Crawley and Pyrite, I want to say somewhat close to both. Both the Pyrite and the Crawley are going to be slimmer than the Sachse. Next to the Demko Brothers right there, regardless of blade shape, they're both going to be, I believe, a little bit wider than the Sachse, just because of how that blade folds in and how much it sticks out of the handle when folded. And last but not least, here are the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3 right there. Obviously, the Spydercos are going to be much more wider on the pocket when folded, when tucked away, because of the Spidey hole. But it's not always the case, right? Check it out here next to the Spyderco Smock, which has a slightly different design. The Spidey hole is a lot smaller, and therefore it is a much thinner knife compared to the Sachse. All right, let's do a quick carry profile. Here it is next to the Wrap Model 1. Very comparable to the Wrap Model 1. Compared to the Wrap Model 2, the Wrap Model 2 is going to be much smaller right there, as you can see. The Wrap Model 2 is going to be a lot slimmer right there, as you can see. Here's the brother, the Crawley on the right, Sachse on the left, right? Very comparable. CJRB Pyrite is going to be a little bit slimmer. Demko 80-20.5 is going to be a little bit slimmer as well. PM2, very comparable, although a little bit thicker than the PM2. Para 3, right, compared to the Para 3, just a hair thicker than the Para 3. And last but not least, the Smock. Spyderco Smock is, yeah, definitely going to be a little bit thicker than the Smock as well. We have a 9CR18 MOV satin finished blade that is a drop point. It is rocking this black micarta, very similar to the black micarta on the Crawley as well. I kind of wanted them to kind of match a little bit right there, and they kind of get that job done. This guy's available in other options, different handle materials as well, different colors, but there it is. I want to say I'm not necessarily a big fan of the blade shape itself. It kind of gives you kind of like kitchen knives type of vibes, but I mean, it gets the job done, right? It looks nice, solid, and this is a flat grind all the way to the top here, right? Very flat grind going all the way around. I would have also preferred G10 handles. I'm not personally the biggest fan of micarta, but if micarta is good for you, then you have nothing to worry about there. Something that I really like about this guy is the satin finish. I gotta say, me personally, I love stonewash and I love satin finishes, right? So that's why I'm glad that this one is in the satin finish, this one's in the stonewash. I mean, I often debate when I'm buying a knife which one I like the most out of the two, but honestly, you can't go wrong with either or. I like kind of sort of the flair, the shine of the satin finish right here on the right versus the stonewash. Sometimes the stonewash you really can't go wrong with most of the time, but that is up to you for preference. So if you're leaning more towards satin finish, then the Sachse here on the right is going to be the way to go. If you're leaning more towards stonewash, then the Crawley right here on the left is going to be the way to go for you. Since we're here, let's do a quick hardware check. By the way, guys, my tools are linked down below in the description. They're part of the Strabito tool set. Has all the drill bits you may need, screwdrivers, all that good stuff. Links down below. Those do help out the channel at no extra cost to you. My guess is very similar to the Crawley, right? Maybe cheating here a little bit. I know for a fact the Crawley had T6 on the pocket clip and then T8 everywhere else, right? So that's my theory, right? With that being said, here we go. T6 on the pocket clip, yeah, that is confirmed. And then T8, yeah, T8 on the body screws, including the pivot, right? Including the pivot. This one has a pivot screw on both sides, something to keep in mind as well. You may need 2 screwdrivers to tighten or loosen this guy here with the pivot on both ends. And I like that they went the extra mile to make the body screws also a T8, right? Other companies, manufacturers, they cut some corners, they make the body screws T6, but this one is pretty much T8 all the way around except the pocket clip. Speaking of the pocket clip, this guy is very deep carry, no doubt about that. Very deep carry pocket clip, very similar to the Crawley right there. If anything, it's pretty much the same exact pocket clip, right? Copy paste parts from their parts bin, but hey, it gets the job done, right? Very recessed pocket clip screws right there, so you can see. All right, that being said, let's get a quick blade stock thickness on this guy. All right, 0.11 inches, just like the Crawley on the thickest part of the blade. And then on the very tip, I want to say, I know this guy is very pointy here. Very tip is going to be 0.02 inches. As far as the blade, this guy is rock solid. Yeah, this is a 10 out of 10. Very solid lockup. It is a button lock, so a lot of people always, you know, question the strength of a button lock, but this one is very well made. Of course, I mean, you could probably put it to a much harder test than just testing it against your palm, but again, I'm not trying to, you know, to go that far just to prove a point. So for what it is, right, that lockup right there, right, let me get a quick close-up. Right, so there it is. When you push the button, it lets the blade free. By the way, this blade is on washers, so that's why the action is so solid and reliable on this guy. And again, you know, the blade is going to open up like this, and then as soon as it hits, boom, right there, right, it's going to lock in place, right? In order to release, have to push the button right there, and then let go of the blade back. Let's get a quick weight on this guy here, shall we? So for comparison purposes, the brother here, the sibling from Sencut, the Crawley, came in at 3.3. So 3.3 ounces on that guy. The Pyrite, which is another button lock, again, very fidgety as well, 3.5, even though, well, 3.6, even though this guy is an all metal design here. But the Sachse, my guess is going to be around 3.5. All right, also 3.6, all right, look at that, 3.6, just like the Pyrite. Now the Pyrite is all metal design, right? So 3.6, and one last time for fair measure there, 3.6 ounces on the Sachse as well. Looking inside, looking at the guts of this guy, we have some milled liners. So the liners are milled, should help with the weight a little bit right there. The spacers are nice and thick right there, very solid spacers. You'll notice probably there's like this baby spacer right here, this little thin looking spacer. And I kind of came to the conclusion on the last video too, on the last review, and it's the fact that they don't have, both of these knives don't have a lanyard hole. As you can see, there's no lanyard hole going on. So the way they kind of solved that issue, right, for you is they kind of added a much smaller spacer here where you can kind of loop around some sort of string or whatever, your lanyard hole. You can just loop it around this little tiny little spacer right here in the back. Of course, this wouldn't be a review video if you don't do a paper cutting test. So keep in mind, again, this guy is not out of the box sharp. I've been using this guy, EDC, and this guy for way too long now. So there's a possibility it may need a little resharpen. You guys let me know on a scale from 1 to 10. Let me know in the comments. Of course, 10 being the sharpest. Without further ado, here we go. All right, nice clean first cut right there. A little bit of a tear, you know, it just kind of depends on how it catches. See, like right there, it really depends on how it catches from the get-go, right? It might cut a little bit and then, you know, kind of catch at a different point. Now, I want to say I've been EDCing this guy, in case I didn't mention this already, I've been EDCing this guy for weeks on, probably a couple months now. And I want to say, as far as alignment goes, right, let me kind of put my hand here for contrast. You guys be the judge of that, but that looks pretty centered to me right there. So no doubt that's how it came out of the box. Civivi, We Knife, Sencut, right, they're all very well known for their quality out of the box. Their quality check is phenomenal. So I'm very pleased right there with this guy. Right, that being said, I'm trying to think of what else I wouldn't necessarily like about this guy. There's so much that this guy has going for it that is just checks a box for me, right? I love the fidgetability, like I mentioned earlier, right? For me, an EDC knife could also be a knife that, you know, you use obviously for daily cutting tasks, but, you know, has that fidgety factor to it. You could just sit there and just kind of play around with it a little bit in a safe way, of course, and it kind of satisfies that fidgetability itch that most of us have. So this is the Civivi button lock, right? Civivi, Sencut, sister brands, all under the We Knife umbrella. What they did with the button lock, and you probably remember that from the button lock review, check it out if you haven't already, by the way, is that the only deployment option on this guy is the button, right? So button to open, button to close, and that was about it, right? Now they did make a newer version of this guy, which also has a flipper. So then you will have flipper and button deployment. But this guy, you have it all, right? You have the button, you have the flipper, and both thumb stud and reverse flick deployment. So you really can't go wrong with this guy. It just has so much going for it. You would also compare this guy to, let's say, the Pyrite. It's so close to the Pyrite. This is probably going to be a different video as far as my top fidgety knives of all times, and all of these button locks are definitely going to be on that video. Spoiler alert. But yeah, something that it has over the Pyrite is it has the flipper, right? I really wish my Pyrite had a flipper here. That would just completely make the Pyrite perfect for me if it had a flipper as well as a button and thumb and reverse flick deployment. And this guy has all four of them. That being said, guys, if you made it this far into the video, you guys are the real MVPs. Don't forget to like and subscribe. By the way, by the time you're watching this video, it's very possible that the review for the Spyderco Para Military 2 will be out. So if that's the case, I'll put a card right here for you guys to check it out. I love my PM2. It's such an awesome EDC. So if you want to check out that review next, go for it. Thank you guys for all your support. I love y'all. Take care. Peace.